there it is. The port of this PC classic that, I'll be honest, I didn't know existed until I just saw it in a game store and decided, why not? I'll be honest, I was really never into the first RollerCoaster Tycoon game because I also owned the sequel, and in my view, I kinda saw the sequel as an enhanced version of the original, so I felt that there was no real reason to play the inferior first game. So I don't have very much experience with the first game, and I can't really tell if there's truly any differences between the two versions. But to my knowledge, this is essentially the same game, just ported to the Xbox, with the addition of the 2 expansion packs. And obviously that the controls have been swapped around to work on a controller instead of a mouse. That being said, this will be as much as a review of the first RollerCoaster Tycoon game as it is a review of the Xbox port. Now, to start off with, this was the answer to being able to play RollerCoaster Tycoon if you couldn't on your PC or if you just didn't have a PC. And I say that because this game came out in 2003 and computers weren't as prevalent in the home at that point in time as they are now. But one thing that this game had going for it, as opposed to other PC games ported to console, is that everything that was found in the PC version would be found on this version. In other words, there was nothing cut from this version of the game due to, like, space restrictions, which makes sense since this is a port of a game from 1999 that was made 4 years later. And with that, we will now move on to the gameplay. And that is building the ultimate amusement park. And you do this by filling up your park with a bunch of rides. Rides such as roller coasters, bumper cars, slides, haunted houses, and even food stalls. But you also have to manage your park with buying handymen to, like, clean up after guests, or maintenance men to fix your rides, and even have to, like, pay off loans or research, like how much you're gonna pay for research. And you also have to build the paths throughout your park so that way your guests can get to the rides. And you could also build your own roller coaster, as well as place, like, decorations throughout the park. And you're gonna do this across many maps, all each with their own challenge to complete. Challenges like needing to hit a certain guest goal or not going below a certain park rating. Alright, now to move on from what you do in the game to how you play it, which, as I alluded to in the opening, is the most affected part of this port. And that is because all your options are not overlaying the screen, instead they are all found within their own separate menus, which can get a bit annoying at first because you might open them and then forget to, like, select what you want, or completely forget where something is when you need it. But I'll be honest, I kind of quickly adapted to these types of menus and didn't really have much of an issue with them. Well, no issues outside of the speed of the mouse cursor, because it's really slow. Well, at least that's all that's wrong with the controls for this version of the game. As for the controls overall, you can have a bit of an issue here. That is because this game has a stiff 90-degree camera angle that also at a, like, tilt. And even though this game has the ability to zoom in and out, you're still gonna probably have some issues if you want to do, like, fine-tuning to your paths or whatever else. But enough about that, let's move on to the positives of this game. Like how this game has a great variety of rides and roller coasters to build. I know I brought this up before, but you can make your own custom roller coasters down to, like, what color it is or what pieces are on it. And you could also do that to some of the other rides, like the go-karts or build your own mini golf course. You could also give your rides, park staff, and even your guests, like, custom names. And on top of that, all the parks are unique in their own way, like they might have their own theme, or just they all have a different layout. I mean, no two parks are the same. And just overall, this is a fun game that it's very easy to get invested into and lose like a couple hours. But of course, just like every other video game ever made, this game is not free of fault. Like how the game gives you way too much time to complete the challenges. Like they give you 4 years to complete a goal and you end up completing it like only halfway through the second year, so then you just have to wait out the other
2.5, which is like 1 or 2 hours of extra gameplay where you don't really need to do anything. And they really should have just ended it once you hit the goal, so that way you can continue on to a different challenge instead of needing to wait out the timer. Now, this is a bit forgivable since the game is meant for children, and as an adult playing it, of course, I'm gonna end up beating the goal quickly, so it makes sense for them to give kids that much time. And another issue is that some of these parks are really small and have very little space to work with. So you need to be smart to properly utilize the limited space and be creative when it starts to run low. And on the other side of the coin, you have the maps that are just huge and have a whole lot of space to work with. But even these succumb to spatial problems because you end up filling it all the way up like pretty quickly with all the coasters that you could fit in it. Another issue that I have with this game is that although you are able to create your own custom coasters, it sucks that once you build them, like if you build them the way you want them built, all the way, nobody will go on them. They end up coming out as too intense and all the guests avoid them. So then you end up either having to compromise on your original design or just deleting it completely, which especially sucks if you're deleting something that took like 10 or 20 minutes to complete. And the last thing on this list is something I can't really knock the game for, as this is just a general issue with really all games, including the PC version of this one, is that the more customers, the more rides, the more anything being put into the park makes the game slow down and maybe even freeze and have loading issues. I mean, this is an issue that we still have today, and it's gonna be even worse when I play a game from 2003 that's originally from 1999. Now, with that done, the next thing I want to talk about are comparisons to the sequel. Now, this is basically a continuation of the complaints department, but I am not going to hold these particular complaints against the game, but it will show how many improvements were made in the sequel to this game. I would say that the biggest luxury that I missed from the sequel is the fact that there's no speed up option. You are forced to play at normal speed the whole time, and I already previously mentioned how long these challenges can take, and having no speed up option just makes them take longer. Another thing I mentioned was the fact that once you hit your goal on these challenges, the scenario just doesn't automatically end, which, I mean, I haven't played the sequel in a long time, but I'm pretty sure they just end there when you hit your goal. This next one even peeved me off back in the day, which is when you try to place a ride over like a tree, it won't automatically delete the tree. You actually have to manually delete it, and that's really annoying when you're placing down a big roller coaster and have to manually delete every single tree in the vicinity. When it comes to the handyman, you actually have to manually turn off the mowing grass option instead of it being automatically turned off from the beginning, since if you have it on, it just overrides all their other functions. When placing down attractions, you only see like the grid of it, not the preview of it. And that gets pretty annoying when you're trying to find like the station platform where you put your exits and entrances. When a ride breaks down, it doesn't automatically shut down, it actually stays open, which can lead to an accident happening on it. This next one was pretty annoying, which was when you built pre-made coasters, they didn't keep their names that are in the menus, they just get numbered, like Roller Coaster 1, 2, and 3. And because of that, you end up forgetting which ones you placed down and which ones you haven't. The clinic building doesn't seem to exist at all. I mean, maybe it's here, but if it isn't, then that's just non-stop puke happening all over your park. And finally is the ride page and how it goes from left to right instead of up and down, which just doesn't work as well. Now, in the end, despite all these criticisms and comparisons to the better sequel, I still will say that this game, this first game in the RollerCoaster Tycoon series, is still a very solid title. And that goes for both the PC and Xbox versions. And in the end, it turned out to be a pretty good option if you couldn't play it anywhere else. Now, if only the sequel got the same treatment. But oh well.
I always loved the neat little things that you could click on in these games, such as popping a lost balloon,
or making the ducks quack